Hey guys, as I mentioned to you earlier this month, I am in a season of obedience, and God has called me to not only share my knowledge, but the wisdom that He's entrusted me with. And I do want to call out that there is a distinctive difference between knowledge and wisdom. And we're not going to deep dive into that right now, but it's very important that you know that you do not need a certificate or a degree to break generational curses. And I bring up generational curses because in my last video, I talked to you a little bit about a book that I'm writing about breaking generational curses. And as I sat down to write the book, it was very clear to me that we couldn't jump right into slaying dragons without understanding 4 core principles. And I started sharing a little bit about those with you this week. If you've seen any of my postings, they've been about hearing the voice of God, and it's so important that we make space to hear God's voice, that and we can do that through listening to music, through reading our Bible, through meditating, praying. There are lots of different ways to do that. We don't do that though through scrolling social media or talking to other people about our problems. While God does use others, it's important that we're going straight to the source when we are really starting to hear His voice. And so it's so important. And then we talked a little bit about discerning God's voice from other voices, our own and the voice of the enemy, knowing His character, and that He is a God of peace and love and trust and wisdom. And whenever He speaks to us, even when He calls us to do hard things, that we should not be, it should not be a feeling of fear, but one of contentment. And so we'll talk more about hearing God's voice and the importance of hearing His voice. The second principle is obedience. And that is important because once we hear God's voice, He typically calls us to act. And it's so important that we walk in obedience because this is how we build the relationship with our Creator. It's how our character transforms and we witness the fruits of the Spirit. And so, and the third principle is harnessing our power. And until we hear from God and we're obedient, it's hard for us to realize the power that we have, or the power that's within us through the God that's within us. And so, but once we do realize that, the enemy better watch out. And then the last one is knowing that God is our refuge. There are always going to be storms, and in those storms, they're going to hit a little differently whenever we are close to God, when we trust His plan for our life. We'll navigate with ease and obtain wisdom, and come out the other side even more powerful. And so it's so important that we understand these principles. They are building blocks. I will go over them each week. And it's funny because I asked God, how long do I need to stay on one topic? And He said, until I tell you to stop. And it's funny because that's how God and I converse. He's a little snarky sometimes. He knows I ask a lot of questions, but it's all in good humor. He definitely has a sense of humor with me and shows me a lot of grace, and I'm so grateful. So I'm excited to dive into these core 4 principles. I'm excited to hear from each one of you about how your life is being transformed and how you're eventually breaking generational curses in your life. And so I hope that you ride along with me in this, and thank you for allowing me the space to be obedient and to do what God's called me to do. So I love you, and I hope you love yourself. God bless.